Hello dear tea friends from around the world, and welcome to a new tea class with me, Stéphane Nerler, the founder of the Tea Masters blog and the tea-masters.com online tea boutique. And today we are going to talk about new tea, the first tea of 2022. It was harvested on January 24th of this year, so really very fresh. And really especially fresh because this is a season where it's the coldest, so the tea is also the lightest in terms of aromas and of oxidation. And but I'm going to tell you about it a bit later, and we are going to also talk about some news affecting tea business around the world, and about inflation. This is a topic that I touched a few weeks ago, and it's going to be actually very big in the coming months and years, so I think I have to give you some more information on this. Okay, so first, what tea is it? It's the Pian Chun. And the way to describe a tea, so this class is going to be a bit more for beginners, because this is the absolute best buy in my boutique. It's not even 10 cents a gram, so I think it's $12.50 for 150 grams. So it's really the let's say the cheapest tea in my boutique. But it's an Oolong, and because it's the cheapest, so it's really a tea that is going to appeal to beginners. It's also a tea so cheap that you can give it away to your friends, so to let them discover Oolong, what it is about, that actually tea is supposed to look like a leaf and not look like a tea bag. And so it's a great tea in this regard, a lot of value. And but to better say what it is, let's start from the beginning. There are 6 different types of tea. These classes are defined by the way that the tea is oxidized. The least oxidized teas are green, which is not oxidized at all. Then we have white, which is simply dried. We have yellow teas that are slightly processed, so a little bit oxidized. And then we have Oolong category, Qingcha in Chinese, and these oolongs are partially oxidized. So their oxidation level varies. It can go from 10 to 90%. So, and because it's only partially oxidized, it's defined as Oolong tea. And then we have the fully oxidized teas, Hongcha, red tea in Chinese, or black tea in the West. But black tea is a name that is more used for in Chinese for fermented teas, Heicha, fermented teas, which include also pu'er, which is subdivided into the Chun and Shou, cooked and uncooked. But this is so there are these 6 different categories of teas, and in the Oolong category we have this tea, so partially oxidized. Then it's not. We can define it also by its cultivars. This is like with wine. You have Chardonnay, you have Sauvignon, you have Pinot Noir, etc., 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 Merlot. So there are lots of different types of grapes that give different wines. And here we have a cultivar called Chun, which means 4 seasons spring, because it is harvested in all 4 seasons. Actually, this tea is harvested 7 to 8 times a year because the weather in Taiwan allows this. It's such a good weather, and no matter in which season you harvest it, it still has very flowery scents. It smells very spring-like. That's why it has been christened Chun, 4 seasons spring. Then we can also define it by the way that it is rolled, so striped or rolled. So this here we have rolled leaves. They don't. They are more bowl-shaped, and we can define it by the season when it was harvested. Now, usually you have spring and winter teas that are the lightest in aromas because in spring and winter the temperatures are the coldest in Taiwan, whereas summer and fall the temperatures are higher. So then they are usually more suitable for more oxidized teas. But this is an exception. Dong Pian means winter petal, and as the name says, this is a tea that is really harvested in winter because what is usually called the winter harvest happens usually in it starts in mid-October until end of November. We always start in the high mountains first and then go down into the lower elevation by the end of November. But this one was harvested in January, and at a time when it is warm enough for the leaves to grow and grow, and it's possible to harvest them. This happens now more and more in Taiwan because it's such a good climate. It's a subtropical island, so even in January, especially in more the southern region of Taiwan or the central region, the weather is pretty nice even in January, and so the trees are tricked to believe, because all of a sudden it's warm enough, that it's spring and they produce enough leaves that can be harvested. But this harvest is a bit different because the growth is is more uneven than usual because there's not so much light in January. So it produces a bit fewer leaves, which makes them a bit more expensive, and leaves that were grown at the time when it was coldest in the evening, and also coldest during the day. So this kind of climate in January in Nantou, here we are in Mingjian, it's the most similar as it can be to the climate in the high mountains, and therefore this tea mimics in a certain way the high mountain oolong. That's why even on the packaging it says high mountain oolong. Yeah, I don't have it with me, because the farmer says, well, if a consumer is not very well trained into tea, he can be tricked to believe that it is high mountain oolong. But here at Tea Masters, of course, we want to learn about tea, and you can only learn with the truth. That's why I'm giving you all this information, this detailed information about tea, so that you can learn about it and also drink it later. Because, yeah, let's also start to drink it and start to be thirsty. And you can smell it first. Very low oxidized, fresh, flowery smells. The leaves are very green in color, fresh green. A little bit uneven leaves. So even though this is machine harvested tea, the leaves did not grow so evenly as they would in a regular season, because as I said, in January the weather is creates a more uneven situation for the leaves to grow. So I think we have seen the different ways to categorize this tea. First, it is in the big category of oolong teas, partially oxidized. Then it is tea that is characterized by its cultivar, Chun, which is a cultivar that is more on the scent side. It does not produce so much aftertaste or so much taste as Qingxing Oolong, the traditional Oolong for high mountain Oolong. This is maybe it can be viewed as a plus or minus. Minus because what many experienced tea drinkers want is a long aftertaste, because then this prolongs the pleasure of the tea. But it can also be seen as a plus if you are not so well versed into tea making. A tea that does not have so much aftertaste is also a tea that is not so easy to become bitter, and therefore even if you don't brew it very precisely, very correctly, you can still get a brew that is not going to be too much overpowering in terms of taste, and it's easy to drink. But in order to brew it well, we are going to try to get the most out of it with a Juni teapot, and we preheat this teapot like usual. You can tell that I'm already a bit sweating. We are experiencing a return to spring. Last week it was very cold, extremely cold, and lots of rain. This week we had a first change of temperatures. All of a sudden it was almost 30. We had 27 degrees Celsius, must be around 90 Fahrenheit. So the winter seems to be over for a while, at least in Taiwan, and even the sun has made its return. So we are all quite relieved after several weeks of cold and showers. Now, if you want to see how to test your tea for the first time, I advise my video of last week. But for this one, I'll try this method. Okay, so the type of tea, the cultivar, and the origin, Mingjian, Nantou County. So this is a low elevation. This is largest production place of tea in Taiwan, and that's why it is mechanized. Nowadays it is much more flat, not like in the high mountains where you have the tea plantations that are built on terraces. Here it's much flatter, as you can see from the picture I posted to introduce this class. And that's why it's much easier to use a mechanical way to harvest the leaves. And this is what also makes the tea much more affordable, because it does not require a lot of manpower to process. Okay, now the good thing about this tea is it can be it is yeah, very sturdy. It can be overbrewed. You can see. So it's from this point of view, it's really a perfect tea for beginners because it's difficult not to brew it well. The bigger mistakes would be to use water that is too cold, and really, if you completely forget your tea for an hour, this would definitely be a mistake. But if you do 2, 3, or 5 minutes, this is not going to be a big difference. A very nice smell. I'm really baffled by how close it smells like high mountain oolong. Let's see. Very fine smells also from the dry leaves in the jar. Let's see. Oh, and the leaves have opened up nicely. Now, if you like your tea very strong, this is, thanks to its price, the kind of tea that you can really stuff a lot in your teapot to get a lot of power from your tea and top concentration. Yeah, very nice, very nice familiar scent of suji Chun. And so light that yeah, if you are a beginner and if you have tried a couple of Alishan and you are presented with this tea, from the color, from the scent, it will be very difficult for you to tell right away that it's not a high mountain oolong, because it's really a very good imitation or copy, or yeah. So, but the difference is that the price is almost like a third of the price of even an entry range Alishan. Very nice, very light. So this brings us to unfortunately to the question of prices and inflation and what's going on in the world. I'm a bit also sorry I did not post any pictures on social media and did not put any blog articles this week. I was actually busy and I was a bit distracted by this war happening in Ukraine. It's even, and you know, many people bring Ukraine in relationship with Taiwan, saying, "Oh, Taiwan, you are next, you are next." After Putin is invading Ukraine, Taiwan is going to be invaded by China. So this is really requires me to drink more tea to calm down, to take this with a more zen attitude. We really would not like to discuss these matters. They quickly become political, and as I've mentioned before, tea is not about politics. You can, of course, you can mix politics with everything, but it's better when there are some areas that stay free of it. But we cannot escape the fact that these global events also have repercussions on tea and on prices. Now, a couple of weeks or months ago, I mentioned that inflation is first a monetary thing, that it's when a central bank prints more money or prints money faster than the products and services are being created, that you get inflation, because there's more money available than goods and services to be bought. So this is we were already in this cycle of inflation, and this crisis in Ukraine and with Russia, with the sanctions that are now imposed on Russia, is going to create another inflationary pressure, because the purchases of oil and gas from Russia are going to apparently go down to Europe, and this is driving the prices higher for gas and petrol and oil for the refineries, and then also for gas at the pump. This has led now to really very strong price increases, and this has already led to price increases for this tea. So you will notice last year it was 12, now it's 12.5. It's not yet a big increase. But when everything that you purchase goes up in price, at the end of the month, this will be less money for you to spend on things that are not fully necessary in your life, like tea. What you really need, of course, is to pay the rent and eat and drive to work or to school. So tea is usually one of the last expenditures that we make with money that is left over. And when everything goes up, even tea, then at the end it's going to be less money for you to spend on what you like. This is really unfortunate, but this is a fact now that is going to affect everywhere in the world. So this is a tea that will be probably even more popular this year, because you will have many customers will have less money to purchase on the more expensive teas. So this is one way to fight inflation, to turn to lower priced teas, and this, as I said, is quite a good copy. So of course we enjoy the quality over quantity, but if you are not dedicating so much time on making tea, I think this is still a very good tea, and also a very good entry level tea. So this will be one of the ways to fight inflation. And the other reason that tea is going to become more expensive this year, I expect, is that actually tea is a lot of energy. Tea, as I mentioned, you need energy to power the machines to harvest the tea leaves in the field. You need energy, fossil energy, to transform the leaves, to warm up when you do the thatching. When you want to stop the oxidation, you need gas-powered big ovens that do this. Then you need electricity to compress the leaves to give them this shape. You also need usually electricity or charcoal to do the roasting at the end, and then you need energy to ship. So the shipping costs have already gone up because of the COVID. There are less planes in the air traveling from one region to another. Now Russia has closed its airspace to European companies, and vice versa. So for European air travel, it's going to be more expensive to come to Asia and from Asia to go there, because Russian airspace now is not available anymore. So actually there are lots of all the factors currently are pushing the prices higher, and this is really one thing that troubles me, not only for the business, but also for the well-being of people around the world, because this will mean very lowered standards of living. So my hope is really that this war ends quickly and that the sanctions can be lifted, that peace returns to the people in Ukraine, and that we can again enjoy the better lives, and that lowering our budget for because will only be something temporary. So I'm a little bit sorry for this gloomy notes, but yeah, as I said, learning about tea is to give you the detailed facts about the leaves and where it comes from, when it's harvested. But I also want to say the truth as I see it about what is going on in the world and how it's going to affect us tea drinkers, and of course we are the least affected. If we are still able to drink tea, means we're already very fortunate. Well, of course we think of those who are in desperate places. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching this a little bit more sad show, and I hope that I'll see you again with some better news next week. And in the meantime, drink good tea and be happy. Bye bye.